Now, okay. All
So
right.
did it change it to more readable?
Let me see. Hi guys, we are on. Kind of, sorta. You can still, it still cuts off founder of Flow Living, but you can make it out. So we are on. We are live. We apologize. We had some volume controls, and thank goodness I got a second computer. I always have two computers going so I can monitor, and then, but anyway, something's up with the volume on this other computer. So we are here, and we appreciate your patience. And let me just make sure we're running on the event page. Okay, great. Yay. So
Yay.
Welcome to Fertility Sessions, where you get expert advice from women's health experts, and it's free. I am Aimee Raupp, and I love that I am hosting these events, and they're so much fun. This is the fourth one, and we've had such great feedback and such great turnouts. So I really appreciate all of you putting forth your time and energy to join us here. So I'm Aimee Raupp. I am the author of Yes, You Can Get Pregnant. I am a women's health and fertility expert. And yeah, I'm here to just give you guys all the information I can to help you along your path to balancing your hormones and living your healthiest life and getting pregnant when you want to. And I am thrilled to have a wonderful guest with me tonight, Miss Alisa Vitti, and I will let her introduce herself. And here she is. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. So happy to be here. I'm fresh off breastfeeding my daughter and getting her to bed. So it's a miracle that we're here
Totally.
on time. So thank you for having me, Aimee, and I'm thrilled to be chatting with all of you who are listening and eager to optimize your fertility. We're going to give you the goods tonight. Who am I? I am, some people call me the hormone whisperer. Some people call me the period champion, whatever, fertility and hormone expert. I am the author of Woman Code, and I am the founder of flowliving.com. And we are a functional nutrition online virtual center for women. And we take care of thousands of women in 206 countries. It's incredible what the internet will allow these days. So if you have ovaries and an internet connection and hormonal imbalances, we have online programs to help you fix your period, improve your fertility, and help you, 35 and over, deal with the changes that are happening to you hormonally. And that's really what we're expert in. And I'm not only someone who's just passionate about this subject as an expert and a researcher and a functional nutritionist, but I'm also someone who lived through a major hormonal problem and was told at the young age of, I believe it was 20, that I would, have all sorts of issues, including obesity, propensity for diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and of course that I would never get pregnant naturally. And that certainly made me passionate. I was diagnosed after 7 years of not knowing what was wrong with me with a pretty severe case of PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I was a student at Johns Hopkins University, fully planning to become an OBGYN. And I thought, I'm going to figure this out. And, traditional gynecology is not going to get me better. So what will get me better? And it led me to functional medicine. And that's what I've been doing for my career ever since. But being able to transform my own health and get my periods back regularly was step one. But then to be able to conceive naturally at advanced maternal age, is part two of my story. And so I'm like you. I have lived through this experience. I'm not just here to preach to you like, eat kale. I have lived the work and still do to take care of my hormones every day. So I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to chat and teach whatever I can to help you today.
Wonderful. And I should add in case you guys don't know my story about conceiving naturally and quite quickly at the age of 40. So as well, we're both advanced maternal age women here, and we both really practice what we preach. And yeah, come to you from that place of understanding and with lots of love that we can just share as much as we can, because we did it, so we believe that you can too.
We look good for advanced maternal age.
Well, I have a little son right now too. Now I'm 41 too. I gave birth to my son 2 days before my 41st birthday. So, but I was in California and I ran a half marathon, and sunblock just comes off and I got sun. So here we are.
You look good. You're looking good.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. Lovely.
Thanks.
Especially for just breastfeeding. I know.
And not having slept through the night for so long.
I know. I put him down right before we got on the call. So, all right. So anyway, people, let's get into it since we made you wait.
Yeah.
My apologies. So the topic tonight is the fertility food guide. And basically we're just going to go over what we think is the ultimate way to eat, not just for fertility. That's kind of a blanket statement for hormones. And one thing I always say to all of my clients is your health, your fertility is an extension of your health. So what we're really trying to do here is optimize your health. And that means to balance your hormones. And that means then your fertility will thrive as a function of that. And I'm sure we're going to get into it. And I know we share very similar philosophies, but most importantly to me, you know, food is, you know, as an acupuncturist, right? So I use needles in Chinese medicine to help influence people's health and help their body become balanced. But we also see food as a really important tool in Chinese medicine, because we can't add what we say qi or energy to the body through the needles, and we can't add blood to the body through the needles. What we can do though is help circulate it. But the only way to add substance to the body so it can function properly is through diet. So food is medicine to me. It is the most important medicine to me. And then as a research scientist in my old days, my days before I was an acupuncturist, you know, I have a very strong background in understanding science and epigenetics and how our nutrition really influences basically how our body ages and our cellular health and our cellular function. Food literally can change our biochemistry. So it's really important to understand that, you know, what both of us talk about is more of a lifestyle. It's not a 3-month, you know, fix it so you can get pregnant and then go back to your old habits type of way. You know, we're looking to optimize women to be the healthiest, best selves for as long as they possibly can, you know, and support them through all their paths and all their hormonal shifts.
I think it's so important that you, as an acupuncturist, made that statement, Aimee, because oftentimes, you know, in my practice, I have women who will come and, you know, have worked with various practitioners, and, you know, the food conversation kind of gets lost amidst supplements and things. And I agree vehemently that, you know, the only way to really, truly change anything inside your body from a hormonal biochemical standpoint is through food. It's the most powerful and effective tool that we do have to heal the endocrine system overall, to manipulate glandular function for the better. And so it's really exciting that, you know, basically every meal, every day, you could be making yourself more and more fertile.
Yes.
As long as you know what you're doing, you know, that should give you a lot of fire, you know, to really take it on, you know. And yes, it's true. You may not hear it if you're working, let's say if you're doing IVF, I hear this all the time. Women will read up on studies about, you know, oh, this food. And in my book, for example, in Woman Code, I talk about, I mentioned one of these important studies that came out about how food is so critical in the fertility process. They looked at women who were going through the IVF process. I call this the avocado study, because they were looking at the effects of avocados. But so basically they had a control group that was just doing IVF as per normal, not making any changes to their diet. And then they had the test group that was eating 3 avocados a week. And the test group who was consuming the avocados, they increased their success rate significantly versus the control group. And that was just changing one food. And what's exciting about that is that you can arm yourself with that knowledge and say, there is so much that I can do, myself to improve whatever, other tools I might be using. But I do want to say that don't be surprised if, upon bringing the subject up of the avocado study or any other food study to a particular, IVF practitioner, for example, because I hear this far too often, and I'm not bashing the IVF practitioners. There are some amazing ones out there who do, but if you're working with one who just isn't, focusing on the food piece, don't be surprised if you hear them say, oh, you don't have to worry about changing your diet, we'll just do the treatments. And I want you to remember that you're here learning the truth, which is food really does make a huge exponential shift in your fertility. And you do want to take it every day, an opportunity to do that with what you're eating.
I'm going to add in there, I couldn't agree more. And, obviously working with so many fertility clients, I've heard, unfortunately, some of the very popular doctors, and same thing, I'm not out here to bash doctors, but that one doctor in particular said to several of my clients, food has nothing to do with this. And it's just so sad. It really is, because it also tells us that doctor isn't reading the current research. There's a lot of research out that supports not even just foods,
hugely,
but antioxidants, melatonin. I mean, there's all sorts of things that can help improve egg quality, which, keep in mind too, when we're talking about egg quality, we're not, your eggs are no separate than the rest of your body. We're really just improving cellular function on every level. And your eggs are made up of cells that, as is your skin, so everything improves. It's not just egg quality. It's your overall biochemistry shifts and it improves.
I mean, here's where we are with the research, right? We now know that certain micronutrients. And so I'm going to talk, we're going to talk about foods, but what really Aimee and I are talking about is micronutrients, because that's what is being researched. Like, they're not necessarily researching bananas, but they'll be researching,
antioxidant,
B vitamins and vitamin C and these things, right? So we take a step back and say, okay, which are the foods that are most rich in these micronutrients? But what we're talking about is micronutrients. So here's where we are with the research. We're at the point where we know that we can extend the quality of your genetic material with certain micronutrients that focus on protecting your telomeres, right? Which are the sort of caps at the end of your, sequence that determine, the quality of your genetic material. And that's all over your body, but definitely in your eggs as well, right? So we're down to that level. So even to just even make the statement that food has nothing to do with it is silly.
I think reckless.
Reckless. I like your strong language. It's your show. We're gonna go with that.
Yeah, I do. I think purely reckless, but because of the research of epigenetics. So just the telomeres, and just so to break it down for you guys, it's basically like we're saying, we used to think that our genes were set in stone, that they couldn't change, that how you lived your life didn't really matter because what you got given by your parents was just that. The last, now it's been, I guess, 12, 13 years, the science of epigenetics has come out, which tells us that actually how we live our life depends, or actually influences, then how the genes manifest. So whether they turn on or they turn off.
Well, and it's not just lifestyle,
right.
it's food and lifestyle. And they studied identical twins to discern this epigenetic, switch. And it was really, they were like, there's only two things that make it switch on or off, and it's what they're eating and certain environmental, lifestyle factors. that's so powerful to know that really your choices, the products you're putting on your skin, are you taking too many clothes to the dry cleaner? Is your husband playing too much golf, and exposed to pesticides? I mean, let's get practical. I'm talking about really practical things, as well as, are you eating, both of you, mainly organic foods, or at least avoiding the dirty dozens or whatever. I think it's probably more than a dozen now. Doing all those things to really make sure you're not hindering your fertility, because with idiopathic infertility on the rise, right? Yes. No known cause, which is, from Aimee, I would imagine, and my point of view, it's not that there's no known cause. It's just that, all these things that are happening in your lifestyle choices and your food choices are really, interfering with endocrine function. And so the first thing that I always like to have women do is just do an audit of what we call flow blockers. What are those things that might be in your diet and lifestyle that are blocking your fertile flow and that optimal, fertile state? And it's as simple things like, what cleaning chemicals are you using? What nail polish are you using? Is the salon that you go for your pedicure is well ventilated? What makeup are you using? Skincare, lotion, anything that you're putting on your body that sits on your skin for a long time has to be, chemical free. And why? Xenoestrogens, not to mention the pesticide in your food. Xenoestrogen, is a term that we use to sort of speak to this whole category of chemicals in food, in products that mimic estrogen in the body. And most women who are dealing with menstrual disturbances and fertility challenges are estrogen dominant to begin with. So compounding that with all of this chemical exposure that is, adding fuel to the fire is not going to help you achieve your goal. So it's such an important first step. And I hope to inspire all of you tonight to, just take a look at your medicine cabinet and your beauty cabinet and your cleaning cabinet. And if there are things that are pretty much from like a standard drugstore, those big brand names, those are not products that you can keep. You've got to go green everywhere.
One thing I say too about skincare is, if you can't eat it, you shouldn't put it on your skin. And
I say that too.
And that's what I started.
But it's true. That's good. It's good.
I guess several years ago now. And because I really couldn't find anything out there that was as natural as I wanted it to be. And, I'm glad we say the same thing too. That's funny. But it's true, because it gets into your body and it influences. So it's, when we're talking food, we also need to keep in mind that the environmental factors, especially bath and beauty products, are really play an important role. But why don't we get into it? So I'll let you start with ways to protect and enhance the endocrine function to optimize fertility. So I know you kind of got into it a little bit with the flow factors or the flow blockers.
Yeah. I mean, I think first, we like to address that, but then when we really think about, in the sort of the way the flow protocol works is that we seek to eat and time our eating in ways that support the endocrine system's, various jobs. But the endocrine system is, seems like this big scary word. It's the system that, has, your thyroid gland and your ovaries and your adrenals. It's that system. Hormones are the chemical conversation that those glands use to talk to each other. So, really what we're talking about is how can we support these glands so that the hormones can become balanced, because that's what the glands are doing. You can't balance your hormones by this sort of one-to-one thing. That's like the old mentality, like spot treating at the gym. Well, my thighs are a little too big. Let me just do thigh exercises. You can't just fix estrogen levels. That's not how it works. It's more of an indirect approach, but that's why it is so effective. So the first job of the endocrine system is to safeguard the transport of glucose to the brain, the heart, and the muscle tissue. That is the most important job that the endocrine system has. which seems like it would be surprising, right? Because you think, well, isn't it like fertility or menstruation or sex drive? No, these things are like bonus items. They are not actually essential for you to live. And so you only get to have the privilege of having your period be regular and pain-free, or to be able to be fertile for a long period of time, or to have a great sex drive, which is supposed to get hotter with age, mind you, for women. If you know how to feed the endocrine system, or what I like to say, feed your flow, because it's a whole process. So that's the first place that we like to start, is making sure that you're eating and timing your meals in order to keep blood sugar as stable as possible. It's really, really the most important thing. If you mess this up at breakfast, you're basically screwed for the whole day, and you reset at night if you get good quality sleep. And this is why it's such a slippery slope, and why so many women are struggling with fertility issues. Because what does you think to yourself, well, so what if I get a little hungry, or I get a little headache because I skipped a meal, or I had coffee on an empty stomach? How what does that have to do with my fertility? Well, everything, because when insulin levels are erratic, which is a hormone, which we don't think about when we think about our fertility often enough. But when insulin levels are erratic, it actually suppresses ovulation. Mm-hmm. Now, for those of you who have PCOS like I used to have, this, insulin, ovulation, the connection. But so many women who don't have PCOS think, well, this has nothing to do with me. I don't have insulin resistance. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. If you wake up, here's the worst thing you could do if you're trying to get pregnant. Wake up. Here it is. You're not going to like me after I say this, but you're going to thank me later. So it's worth it for now.
Exactly.
The worst thing that you could do is wake up and have a cup of coffee on an empty stomach. And I don't care if you're putting butter in the coffee. The research is, listen, Dave is a friend. I love the bulletproof thing. It's great. But the research just came out, actually, by the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, that caffeine consumption increases miscarriage rates. Yeah. And it's so powerful of an effect that even if your husband is doing this, it will affect your ability to carry the child. So not just that caffeine is increasing miscarriage, but because on an empty stomach, first thing in the morning, after your blood sugar has been low while you're sleeping, you're going to just wreck your insulin levels for the whole day and disturb ovulation for the entire cycle. And the more days in a row that you do this, the more cycles out are going to be screwed up. So I'm sorry if you have a caffeine addiction. But this is one of the things, we actually have a caffeine step down program as this sort of like first month of cleanup that we do in the Fertile Flow program. And I mean, I've had women, I can't even believe that women would drink, like 10 cups of coffee a day. But I haven't had a cup of coffee in 20 years because I'm so sensitive to it, and it really is a problem for me. But yeah, it's possible to live without coffee is the moral of that story.
I'll just chime in. So, for some basic tips, I'm sure you say the same thing, but, or chime in and correct me if you say something different, or, I usually say within like the first 20 to 30 minutes of waking, you need to have something in your mouth, and protein is the option of choice. And usually that throws people off, because I same thing when I'm chatting with new clients, it's they might not be having breakfast until like 8, 10 a.m. and they're up at, say 5:30, 6 o'clock. So they're going at least 2 hours without food. And that's really bad. And it's the same thing as Alisa was saying, that it just basically sets up, a cascade for the day, that just your blood sugar is off all day. So that means your hormones are just off all day.
Yeah, getting the morning piece right. I like to say within an hour upon waking is, the absolute maximum. Yeah. I agree that 20 to 30 minutes is as ideal. But, if you're a slow waker, and you need to do your morning ritual and stretch and have a bowel movement and all of those things before you're ready to eat, as long as the food is in your mouth before the 60 minutes goes by, that is fine. I will also say that protein's a good option, but I notice, and in myself, but also with my clients, that we as women, because we are cycling and our hormones are shifting week over week. This is so the other big piece of my work is called cycle syncing. And what I discovered in all my research was that, we need to be eating specific foods to help offset the effects of these hormones that are happening week over week. And so some weeks of the month, you're more satisfied with just protein for breakfast. Right. Other weeks of the month, you may need a little bit more carbohydrate and fat alongside with that protein. And so, that's the other thing that is an important takeaway when you're thinking about getting your fertile flow optimized, is to understand that you're not the same person each day of the month, and you can't eat and exercise and organize your to-do list as if it's Groundhog Day, right? Like you wake up every morning and boom, same day, same set of expectations, same meals, same intense workout, because you already know that first half of your cycle, you're going to Barry's boot camp class and you're crushing it. And second half of your cycle, you're hoping to God nobody notices you sneak out the back door after 20 minutes of that same class. And what's changed? Not your willpower, not your dedication to exercise. You're not suddenly overnight becoming this lazy sloth out of stamina person. No, your testosterone levels have changed, your estrogen levels have changed, your insulin sensitivity has changed. All these things change across the cycle, and you need to learn how to be flexible in relationship to those things fluctuating. Yes. So that's sort of the mastery level. Once we get breakfast organized, you're like, oh my God, I just need to get off the coffee. How can I go there? You get there step by step. But that's a really exciting time, is when you're really so in tune with your body and giving your body what it needs, and it's the right foods at the right time, that you're really in a place where you've really optimized your fertility to that extent. It's just so great.
Absolutely. I love it. And I agree. I mean, what I usually recommend is, I always say, if you could do 4 almonds within the first 20 or so minutes, and then have your breakfast, when you're going to have it within that hour and a half. But how important it is. And then to continue to eat, and I'm sure you agree, within every 2, max 3 hours throughout the day. And do you have different foods, Alisa, that you recommend at different times in the cycle?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a whole chart. Chapter 5 in my book is like the whole chart. There's so many foods for each phase of the cycle. But when I was on Dr. Oz, they were like, can you make sort of 4 tables to represent, the foods for each phase? And so yeah, in the first half of the cycle, we can just break it into sort of the first half and the second half, just for the interest of time. But the first half, you're eating more lighter foods, sprouted foods, fermented foods, raw foods. And meaning you can eat other things, but you're sort of turning up the volume on the more raw things, and smoothies and salads and all of those things will really work for your blood sugar and your estrogen levels at that time. And then the second half of the cycle, you need more B vitamins for the progesterone levels to be maintained. And so, it's more proteins, more fats, more carbohydrates. But you also have sort of elevated levels of many hormones happening simultaneously. And so fiber is also a key component at the same time to help that all leave your system expediently. So it's a really cool way. The cycle syncing system is a really cool way for you to just, feel good all month and optimize your fertility every week, because it is not a static thing, and the reason why this might seem like new information to you, although as people tell me, women tell me, like, oh, as you talk about it, it's like, yeah, of course I know I'm a different person. Yeah. Like how come I haven't heard this before? I don't know why. I can't answer these big mysterious questions, but what I can tell you is that most science and most research is done on male physiology, as Aimee can confirm, and that is a 24-hour hormonal cycle, which is the male pattern. And so your belief that you should be operating on a 24-hour cycle is a misunderstanding perpetrated by, I don't know, a lack of research on women and their hormonal cycle, which is 28 days. So you have a different operating system and it needs different support.
I love that. I love that. I think that's a great point too about the research, and it's mainly done on men and their physiology and how different we are, just hormonally, obviously, and just as beings in general. We're constantly changing. And so let's kind of shift. I mean, we've been talking quite a bit about how to manage blood sugar, and that really is the basis of hormonal balance, to understand that. And that's the basis of regulating that endocrine system so that then your body can achieve optimal fertility. And I wanted to touch upon again what you said earlier too, of how, having a regular menstrual cycle, ovulating, even the ability to get pregnant is kind of like the cherry on top. It's the added bonus, as a female, that, but the basics need to get taken care of first. So our body thinks, especially if we're not eating a healthy diet, or say, what I always say to clients too, if we're going too long between meals, your body, to break it down very simply, basically thinks it's being starved. So it kind of goes into survival mode, and it will shut down anything. It does not comprehend that it's important to procreate, because it actually doesn't think it has the resources to do so.
Right. I mean, because what you're talking about, Aimee, and such an important point, is that when you don't support nutritionally the prime impetus of the endocrine system, which is to safeguard that sugar transport to the brain and the heart, anything that disrupts that registers as a code orange, like amber alert. It's like it's danger in the system, right? And cortisol levels go up immediately. And that's another hormone that will, as cortisol levels are elevated, that's another hormone that will suppress ovulation and dysregulate that pattern. It will also, elevated cortisol will also lower your DHEA levels and affect your sex drive and your moods and weight and all of that. So the sugar thing is the first thing in getting breakfast right. The second thing I really like to work on is the adrenal issue, because, blood sugar issues aside, and how that might be, exacerbating your ovulation issues, the stress in your life. And stress can come from missing meals, like Aimee was saying. It can come from doing the wrong exercise intensity at the wrong time in your cycle, because that will push on your adrenal reserve and spike cortisol. It will come from stress, that you can't control at work and in life and all of those things. But there's a lot of stress that you can control by really managing diet and lifestyle. Yeah. The other way that it comes is from not having good sleep hygiene, which is another place where hormone can break down. That's key for ovulatory regulation, which is melatonin. So if you're not sleeping in darkened rooms, especially if you're living in an urban environment like we do, you've got to get blackout shades for the bedroom, essential. And you've got to sleep in darkness so that you have a chance of making enough melatonin to help with ovulation support. So that's the second thing. The third thing is estrogen metabolism and microbiome support. It's so critical. We know, again, elevated levels of estrogen, lower levels of progesterone. It's going to be very hard for you to maintain a pregnancy with that hormonal ratio. So really using food here is so key. In the case of blood sugar management, it's proteins and fats that really help us maintain that blood sugar. In the case of adrenals, whatever's good for blood sugar is good for everybody in the endocrine system. But in the case of the adrenals, I really love recommending foods that are rich in vitamin B5 and 6. So things like chickpeas and sunflower seeds are really healing, and vitamin C, huge for the adrenals. So any fresh, fruits will help tremendously heal the adrenals as far as stress. With estrogen elimination, fiber, flax, chia, kale, collard greens, any sort of cruciferous vegetable is going to help you because it contains 3 breakdown estrogen. And then, any sort of gut regulation that you need to do is also critical when it comes to estrogen metabolism. We know that there's a specific bacteria in your gut called the estrobolome, which is responsible for metabolizing estrogen in your intestine. And if you've had a history of taking the birth control pill or antibiotics chronically or other medications chronically, that can really damage the balance of bacteria in your microbiome, making it challenging for you to not only balance estrogen, but also to maintain proper immune function. One of the things that happens to women when they are having a difficult time maintaining a pregnancy is bacteria overgrowth in the vagina, chronic yeast infections, chronic bacterial vaginosis, chronic UTIs. All of these things can cause preterm labor or in early stage pregnancy, miscarriage. And that is not just a local bacterial overgrowth, that's a systemic immune issue. And there's a reason why we sequence in the flow protocol in this order, because if your adrenals, for example, which is the second step, are not being supported, just that level of elevated cortisol is going to suppress your immune response. So you can take all the probiotics you want to try to address your bacterial balance, but if your adrenals are not balanced and those cortisol levels are high, your immune system is not going to have a chance to recover. And so it's another thing to consider. So we do a lot of work to sort of bring that all into balance. And then the fourth step is really layering in this cycle syncing technique so that you're never stretching yourself beyond your endocrine limits.
Right.
Because that's where we get into trouble, right? That's where we burn ourselves out too quickly and age prematurely from a hormonal standpoint. And these four steps really have dramatic, when you start really working the food piece in this way, it has such a dramatic effect. I've had women who have been told by IVF doctors, your FSH level is 17, 18, there's no way. And then they follow these steps, they change the food, they heal the endocrine function with food, and their levels drop down to a 6.
Mm-hmm.
And they get pregnant at 43, and that's how powerful food is.
Yeah.
And that's what I see all the time in my practice, which is, it's so fun, fun.
I would like to chime in and say exactly the same. It's a ton of fun. And also to realize too, to chime in on FSH a little bit, it used to be considered the gold standard here in the Western medical world of predicting ovarian reserve. And then they started to realize that it can shift cycle to cycle. And it is very estrogen dependent. So what happens is, as Alisa's saying, and even the work I do, is you remove those environmental estrogens or the estrogen dominance. If you work to balance that in the body, the FSH will just naturally go down. And it's just quite interesting that happens all the time. But yet back in the day when I first started practicing, 11 years ago, it was you were only as good as your highest FSH. That's what doctors used to say to women. And so, it kind of branded them, if you will. I'm always going to be a 17, and it means that I have no eggs left. And that's another thing that I always convey to all of my clients too, is that even when we're talking about low ovarian reserve, even if, say, we do or are dealing with a low ovarian reserve, we're still dealing with, I would say, several hundred eggs. We're not dealing with like 3. You still have quite a few left in that pot, So to remember that we can, through all of this work and really balancing your health and optimizing your health, your fertility thrives as an extension of that. But, improving your health on a cellular level, you can improve the quality of those eggs and even the sperm. So even if we are on a decline, which fertility does decline with age, that's not a lie, but it's not nearly as significant as we are led to believe that it is. So,
well, I think that if you're taking care of yourself, let's back it up even further before the FSH gold standard conversation. And I just want to say to that's why it's so important that women are taught this information.
Yes, I agree.
Because if your belief system is saying that your infertile because of this data point, and you don't, and your blind spot is that that data point can be manipulated by your actions, and you don't know that, and you don't take those actions, then that belief then dictates your behavior that then actually creates your reality. But all of that can be shifted by just knowing the science. And that's why I think you and I are so passionate about sharing the science, because I think once a woman, especially in this situation, you know, once you know what to do, I mean, I'm going to move out of your way because I know you're going to do it. I know you are going to do it. And that's why it's so fun. I love working with my clients in the Fertile Flow program, because they're like, I will do the food chain, I will do this. And then of course they get those results, which is so exciting. But let's back it up even further, which is, let's keep in mind that the reason why the pill was such an important turning point in the history of women's health had to do with the fact that women were having their 6th or 8th child at like 48. Okay. And you're meant to be optimally fertile for the maximum amount of time. That is just good biology by design, right? We are designed to procreate the species. We're the 3D, we 3D print the tiny humans, so we have the more important job. And as such, we are designed to be healthier longer, better immune system than the male's counterparts, and fertile for as long as possible. The fact that we're seeing more and more women, you know, having that fertile window truncated so significantly has a lot to do with all the environmental and estrogen disruptors that we talked about at the beginning of the call. But so that's the bad news. But the good news is that your biological destiny is to be, your hardwiring is to be fertile for a very long time. You do, however, because of the historical moment that we're living in now with all the chemicals, etc., you do have to take action. You can't take it for granted that you're going to be fertile. It's not just going to happen anymore like it was several generations ago, where they had to be on the pill because their like uteruses were falling out from having too many babies. You have to actually protect and preserve your fertile factors, and you do that with food and lifestyle changes.
One thing we say in Chinese medicine is that a woman is fertile until the age of 49 if she lives in accordance with the Tao, which is basically in accordance with nature and her life, like that she eats balanced, she sleeps, she moves the correct way, you know, she's in touch with her emotions and expresses them properly. And when all of those things are in sync, that we should be able to actually conceive up until the age of 49. And then it's between 49 and 56 that fertility really does start to decline, but not to say that you couldn't necessarily get pregnant in that time frame. But for us, we kind of cap it at the 49. But that's quite advanced maternal age, if you know.
Right, but you need to be thinking about, you know, my husband actually said something to me that it was very touching. I don't remember if it was when I was pregnant or right after we had the baby. And he was very like emotional about this. And he goes, you know, for the past, I don't know how long it's been, 17 years, I've been practicing for 14, 15 years, but have, you know, been living in the flow for a long time. And he said, it's because you committed to that at such a young age. You changed not just your health, but you changed my life. You gave life to this other person. Like you changed everything because you were willing to do the work and make the choices and make the commitment to living in accordance to your cycle. And what I love about the cycle syncing component of my research that I sort of, you know, just slapped me in the face, like, here's the structure. The structure is actually built, and that's why my book is called Woman Code. There's a system, there's a code by which your body desires to operate, and all you need to do is lean into it, and it will keep you, it will pace you on your self-care practices. It will keep time for you. Your body makes time with your cycle. And so all you have to do is just make that your internal clock setting, and all will be well.
I agree. Bravo. I love that. And I love the backdrop to the title of your book. I think that's brilliant. One thing I want to touch upon, because we did mention that we were going to get into it, and you said it before, and it's something I always say too, which is funny, that our beliefs dictate our behavior and to really understand that. And so I wanted to really touch upon this idea around food too, and how we feel when we eat it, how we feel about it when we eat it, how we recognize, that this food is nourishing us. And when you start to really tune into food as A, being a medicine, but then B, being something that is not only, causing or helping your life to thrive, but then allowing you to create and host another life in your body, then I hope you start to begin to see food as something that you really appreciate and you love. And, I always say to my coaching clients or any clients in the clinic, it's, practice food gratitude. So when you eat that food, and you can use like seeds as an example, they're so good because, you plant seeds, right, and something grows. So this idea that eating seeds will, just see them going in and nourishing your eggs and helping them grow and become a baby, become life, and to start to really become in touch with your food and also where it comes from, so when you start to shift that mentality and the beliefs that you have about your food and how it really is medicine, then you can really begin to love and respect your food for the nourishment it provides you and for the health it provides you. And then from there, I think you further support, because you're kind of removing that stress element too, right? You're shifting your mentality, which in this whole scheme of things, we're talking lots of science here tonight, but there was also science about, the fact that our mental state really does dictate our health. So, finding this state of appreciation and getting in touch with, not just nature and your surroundings, but the nature of your food and how it will provide nourishment is an extremely important piece here. I always say to my clients that I would like you to see it as like a self-love health mission that you're on versus, oh, I have to eat this way because Aimee told me I need to, or Alisa said I have to get in sync with my cycles. That we'll really start to see it as my health is beginning to thrive and start to pay attention to the things in your life that are changing and shifting, right? Not just your hormones. I'm sure with your clients too, Alisa, right? Their skin gets better, their hair gets better, right? Their sleep.
Well, I mean, I love what you're saying, and I'm going to say that I struggled with that at the beginning, again, because I had such a hormonal problem. It was really hard for me to be in a place of gratitude. It was really hard for me to appreciate anything. And so I had to take a two-step approach to get to the place that you're talking about, because I was really angry and disappointed and devastated that this was happening to me. And I mean, God, my skin was covered in acne. I was over 200 pounds. I didn't get my period for 10 years. I mean, it was fucking awful. And I totally understand the feeling of, it's beyond frustration. I don't know what the word is. It's like you're going to jump out of your skin. You want it to be better. And I know that compounded with this deep desire to become a mother, and that your body is the obstacle. I can really, I know that feeling that some of you might be having. And sometimes it feels like a really big jump to say, like, okay, I'm loving this food, because it's more like, fuck you, food, at the beginning. And forgive me that I swear I get really passionate about it. Thank God a study just came out saying that people who swear more often have a higher IQ, so I can hide behind that study. Because I swear a lot. So here's the thing. For me, and this is why I always start here with my own clients, because I was my first client. It is that I always say, just hold on to the science, white knuckle the data
Mm-hmm.
until you start to feel differently.
Right.
You know, I look at food, what I'm eating, and I say, okay, this broccoli is going to lower my estrogen levels.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, broccoli. You know, this food is going to help my progesterone levels. Thank you, whatever that is, chickpeas. You know, this is going to help my egg quality. I'm going to do that. I can be straight with it that way. And then when you start to see your body change, your skin is clearing up, really, when you talk about optimizing your fertility, we're actually talking about you having the pregnancy glow before you conceive. Because for true conception ease comes from extreme abundance of physiological health. And so, the year before I got pregnant, I decided that I was going to, even with all that I do, up my game even further with food, to the point where people were stopping me, close friends, strangers at weddings, saying, you're glowing. Are you pregnant? Are you're gonna, one woman came to me in this very cryptic kind of way, like, I see that you're going to have a baby anytime soon. Like, she was very serious about it at this wedding. I've never met her before, but I can even tell the difference now. I'm breastfeeding 18 months. I haven't slept through the night in 18 months. If I were to look at a picture of me now and a picture of me pre-conception, it's just night and day how in abundance of micronutrient levels and health and hormonal balance I was. Not to say that I'm not taking really good care of myself now, but it's just, I am being drained. I want that for you too. I want you to just get to the place where you start to see the fertile factors in every other area of your health. And then you can, to me, that was the point where I was like, all right, my body is not my enemy. I wasn't in right relationship with her and what she needed. And so, now I can be in that beautiful place of gratitude and visualizing beautiful things happening. But I white knuckled it in the beginning. So that's
great advice. I really do. I think that's phenomenal advice. And that's it. I guess obviously you guys tune in to hear our opinions and for us to present to you what we think is really important for you to do to optimize your health. And we have seen it for so long. We've both been it sounds like in practice for around the same time. And it's just what we see, the changes that occur in our clients is phenomenal. It's downright, phenomenal, right? I've had so many, I'm sure with you too. And diet plays such an important role here. So,
I think that's the biggest important message that we could share tonight, which is you can change your fertility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Full stop. You can, whatever lab results you have today, those can all be changed. You just need to get into the right food conversation with yourself. And, there's so many resources. Aimee has an amazing program. I have an amazing program that's really super targeted on food. You can, yes, you can get pregnant you can, I love that. It's true. It's really, really true. And I think you need to hold on to that. And then you need to not only just hold on to it, you need to take action, and get someone in your corner that can help you make those food changes. And then your body will change. That's 100% a biological reality that will happen.
So I want to get into some of the questions that we got. I'm going to leave you on, because what is your feeling? I know my feeling, and I'll get into it, but what is your feeling on meat and eating meat for women who are, so this woman has endometriosis, and she wanted to know what foods to eat, especially meats, and what our recommendations would be for that.
I would say in the case of you having endometriosis, meat is not a good idea for you. There's I have several blog articles about endometriosis that you're welcome to check out on flowliving.com. The idea is we want to reduce inflammation. Endometriosis is really a special condition. It's an autoimmune, there's an autoimmune factor to this disorder. And so really you want to think about an anti-inflammatory diet in general. So very plant-based. You want to do a lot with omega-3 essential fatty acids to help reduce inflammation. That's sort of the biggest key. But you also want to use things that help the immune system function better, like vitamin C and probiotics, and sort of this more indirect approach to improving your immune function. But yeah, I would say meat, no. I would say, fish, poultry in limited quantities. But, you're a good candidate to be more vegan for health benefit reasons, and not soy vegan, like lentil vegan. Yeah, stay away from soy products. All of you, no soy.
I'm with you. I had a chapter in my first book that said, it was entitled "Sugar is Evil, Soy Sucks, and Fat Will Not Make You Fat." And that was back in 2009. And
that's great.
Yeah, soy is evil. I have a slightly different approach with meat. I still would recommend some animal products, meat products, but that they mandatorily must be grass-fed and in small amounts. I'm talking, like, I usually say the size of a palm, which is about 3 ounces, and probably.
Yeah, and if I think, listen, it's a big question because, for example, I would want her to be evaluated by you to see, does she have stagnation? Yeah. Is she damp? Is she hot? What is the quality of the inflammation? Because we cannot make a blanket statement about meat without really appreciating how your system is functioning. But if you are going to have meat experimentally, have it in the second half of your cycle, closer to your bleed, and not at all in the first half.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I think I support that. And again, the quality of the meat is extremely important. If you couldn't find good quality meat, then I would say to not eat it at all. But
agreed.
Of course, I think we both recommend fish more than meat. What is your recommendations on seafood in general? Do you?
You have to be really careful with seafood. Unfortunately, our oceans are more polluted than we realize. It's funny. I was a big fish eater most of my 20s and 30s, and as soon as I got pregnant, I could not tolerate it for the entire pregnancy. And it was not just sort of it was my body's way, I think, of just protecting against any potential exposure, chemical exposure. But wild caught salmon is good to have, and then other things very sparingly, and stay away from the, Environmental Working Group has a great list of which are the ones to avoid, and I would just always cross-reference that.
I like Seafood Watch too. Do you recommend the Seafood Watch on aquarium site? That's a
absolutely
good.
That's a great one too. Yeah,
Seafood Watch, they have an app, and you can use that to see what are the best fishes for you to eat and have the lowest contamination. But of course. Let's look at the next question here. Improving sperm count and quality. Any advice there on good sperm?
Lots.
You'll take it. Yeah.
Zinc is a standard. Mm-hmm. Coenzyme Q10 is documented 600 milligrams a day for both man and woman trying to conceive. Excellent research on improving both egg and sperm quality. Also, maca for men is excellent for increasing sperm count and improving motility. So those would be 3 that I would start with, for sure.
I love that. I also, in my practice, recommend liver, which from grass-fed cattle, but the organ meat liver, and most people tend to take it in pills. It's also really great for men and for sperm because it has high, selenium, zinc. there's CoQ10, which naturally occurs in there, and then your B vitamins too, which seem to be very helpful.
Oh, I mean, listen, if we're going to go liver is nature's multivitamin. You know, the liver has to store every micronutrient in order to do its job. So it is excellent superfood to eat if you're going to do anything. Yeah. I mean, I don't always do beef, but I keep frozen organic pasture-fed chicken liver in my freezer that I make homemade pate with some apples. Delicious. It's a superfood. You got to have it. Yeah.
I consider it, I call it my fertility secret weapon liver. You know, it's literally we're missing organ meats in our diet, you know, and that's another thing when you're making, say, your broth too, right? I'm sure you're a fan of the bone broths, but when you cook down the entire animal and you cook down all the nutrients from those organ meats, and that, you know, like Alisa said, they're storing all these micronutrients. I mean, in particular.
Did you know that Gerber baby food, originally their original line of baby food was organ meats? But yeah, I mean, I got a hold of a book that had original ads from the 30s and 40s, and it's organ meat pate that was the original Gerber baby food. It's good for everyone.
I give it to my guy. Do you give it to your daughter? Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Liver, sauerkraut, bone broth, and fish eggs if she'll do them. Same. Those are the gotta have them.
Absolutely, so important. Okay, let's get into another question. Best foods for calming the adrenals and reducing stress. I mean, you kind of covered it with the vitamin C's, but
yeah. So, like, citrus fruits are great. Apples, blueberries, oranges, those are good things. Eat seasonal fruits because they're going to be the most micronutrient dense. So, right now I think we're entering berry season. Oranges are particularly good right now. Don't eat apples right now because they're kind of, I mean, you can have some, but it's not apple season, and soon it will be stone fruits and melons, and go nuts with that. And you're like, what about the sugar and the melons? They're gonna make me bloated. You're eating them for a couple of weeks, as your main fruit, and then you're going to rotate. And it's a really good thing for your body to rotate the different types of foods that you're taking in. Yeah. But then chickpeas are great for the B5. What else do I like for the adrenals? Fats are so good for your adrenals, especially coconut oil. We didn't get to talk a lot about the thyroid today, but the adrenals being off and, quickly trigger thyroid dysfunction, and coconut oil is protective and healing for both. So it's kind of like a, two birds, two glands with one oil kind of deal. I would highly recommend that you are eating. I mean, the fat conversation, we could talk an hour on fat, but you should be having half an avocado a day, a tablespoon of coconut oil a day, a tablespoon of, good quality olive oil a day, some sun butter, a tablespoon of that, plus occasional liver and, occasional bone broth throughout the week. I mean, egg yolks, lots and lots of fat, lots and lots of more fat that you could possibly think you need. You need it.
I couldn't agree more. Fat is the key. I was listening to Thomas Cowan talk. You know him from Fourfold Path to Healing is the name of his book. But he was talking about, he was on a podcast about fertility, and the woman kept trying to nail him down for fertility specific foods. And he was just like, listen, it's fat. You just have to eat fat. Fat from animal products, fat from nuts, fat from seeds. Fat is what, and even from a scientific perspective, the outer shell of the egg is what's called like a phospholipid bilayer. So it's fat. And
all the cellular membranes of your body it's a lipid layer. So if you're not having enough fat in your diet, you're actually, increasing the rate of inflammation and the rate of cellular death in your body. You need fat. And your brain is entirely made of fat. Your baby's brain needs fat. I mean, everything about you needs fat.
I love it.
So if anybody had a fat question, I hope we just preemptively answered it.
Here's an interesting question. If you have to choose between dairy, Greek yogurt, or cheese, or carbs, in parentheses, gluten-free carbs, what would the better of the two be? And this, I mean, I think.
Okay, here's the deal. If you have menstrual disturbance, if you have ovulation issue, if you're having that as an issue, I would say no dairy,
Yeah.
None. Not only are the hormones counterproductive, okay, so what is dairy? Dairy is the breast milk of an animal, much larger in size than you, that is intended to grow a small animal into a very large animal. Though that happens by virtue of growth hormones, which is not productive for your hormonal balance, A. And B, from a Chinese medicine standpoint, which of course you can speak to much more eloquently, dairy increases mucus production in the body all over the system and can create more stagnation in the uterus and in the whole fascial structure of the pelvic cavity, and just not make optimal circulation for micronutrient exposure for all those organs. So many reasons why dairy is kind of a no-no. And thirdly, it gums up the works of the intestines and makes leaky gut and micronutrient deficiency much more of a problem than you want to deal with. So for those three reasons, no. And then what about once you get pregnant? Should you have some dairy? Depends if you can tolerate it. And if you are going to have any, it should be raw, grass-fed sheep or goat. Mm-hmm. Because we don't yet have the only dairy production with cows. I believe it's the Holstein cow. I may be getting this wrong. That has there's A1 and A2 cow protein. A1 protein tears up microscopically the lining of your intestine, and A2 cow protein does not. And that is what is in Europe, which is why a lot of people with lactose intolerance travel through Europe and eat the cheese and have the ice cream. And they're like, oh, I was fine. Well, yes, you were, because the dairy is completely different protein structure. We don't have labeling yet about which protein, the cow milk is. So it's not yet something that you should feel confident about purchasing. But goat and sheep raw, is great if in small quantities in cheese or yogurt form when you're pregnant.
And then will you touch upon what your thoughts are about gluten-free carbs?
Yeah, here's the deal. If it's gluten-free convenience carbs, you need to really critically read the labels, because most of it is junk. And first and foremost, stop with the convenient stuff. I only eat pseudo cereals. So basically it's quinoa and buckwheat. Mm-hmm. Those are my two grains that, they're not actually grains, they're pseudo cereals, but I still soak those overnight with a little vinegar, apple cider vinegar, and we'll make them the next day. I will occasionally have brown rice, second half of my cycle, and occasionally have gluten-free oats. But, even with the gluten-free oats, there's the research is that, it's inconclusive. Some oats are truly gluten-free. It's not enough of you have to see how you feel with the oats. That, they're still trying to figure out what to say about the oats. But I think it's fine if you have some carbohydrates in small quantities. Again, I'm someone who technically shouldn't have any, according to conventional thinking about PCOS. But in fact, really the truth is that you need to stabilize your blood sugar. And so you need to rotate healthy carbohydrates throughout your diet and throughout your cycle. So sweet root vegetables, certain gluten-free pseudo cereals are good. That kind of fruits. When we're talking about gluten-free carbs, are you thinking about an apple? Because that is a gluten-free carb, right? So, it just expand your definition, like a smoothie, like my banana. I love this smoothie I'm making lately: banana, spinach, blueberry, sun butter, cinnamon smoothie, almond milk. That's full of carbohydrates that are gluten-free.
Yeah.
But none of that has any grain in it. So just start thinking a little bit out of the box and throw out those prepackaged boxes, because they're probably not good for you.
Yes, I agree. And let's see. Our last question, I'll just keep on you. Over-the-counter organic bone broths. What do you think about that? My baby boy is crying in the background, if you can hear him. I know we flew back from California on Monday, so he's a little
jet lagged. Yeah. Organic over-the-counter bone broth, like
for someone who doesn't have time to make their own.
Wait, hold on. I order my bone broth
from Thrive, right?
I'm busy. I actually order from a wonderful company locally in upstate New York called the Oliver Weston Company, which I love. I love them. They do great bone broth. They do fish broth, which I love for my thyroid, and they do chicken broth and beef broth and other things. But yeah, there's au bone broth,
Mm-hmm.
which is like au bon pan, but just broth delivery. If you're ordering it, it should always come frozen. That's really key. The nutrient degradation in fresh is pretty significant. So make sure that wherever you're getting it from, they're shipping it to you rock solid frozen. And it's totally fine. You know, I have yet to make my own bone broth. I fantasize about doing it someday, but it feels really like a big prohibitive thing to be doing right now because I'm busy breastfeeding and running a company and trying to do self-care. So wherever you can outsource in a way that makes sense for you, yeah, do it.
Just to add to that, I do make my own bone broth, and I did a video.
You're awesome.
My next blog will be coming out, and it's about a 10-minute video of my step-by-step, and
I'm going to be watching.
Yeah, I show you how to do it. But I agree.
I'm a little grossed out by going to actually get the bones. That's the part that that's where I get stumbled.
So I do it. It's from Nourishing Traditions, but I do the whole chicken and just stick the whole thing in the pot, so don't have to deal with. And then the whole thing just kind of melts. It's just the longer you cook it. I have not made beef broth. I get it from either Oliver Weston or
I don't know if you mentioned this in your blog, but there is a certain time. I think it's more than 5 hours. You increase the quantity of L-glutamine in the bone broth if you boil the bones for more than 5 hours, and that actually can be problematic for some people. So if you are going to make your own bone broth, make sure you're boiling it for under 5 hours.
Oh, see, that's interesting because I follow. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I'll have to look into that research. I do it for about 8 to 10 hours. But
so it's about your gut and how much L-glutamine you can tolerate.
Right. Okay. That's really interesting. I like that.
Well, now my baby's waking up, so this must be the alarm clock.
Yeah. We're gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna just I'll say my thanks and then you can say yours. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we really appreciate it. I'll follow up tomorrow with an email with all of our information and where you can find us, everything. And also the link to this video, which will live on YouTube, so you can watch it again and again. And thank you so much. Thank you, Alisa, for being here. I really enjoyed this. This was great. And
it's always fun to talk to a fertile soul sister. So thanks for having me. And for everybody who's watching, we're here to be helpful. So please make sure you're reaching out to both of us for whatever it is that you need to help you on your journey.
Yeah. Okay. All right, signing off. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Good night.